Welcome to KQEG and Seven River Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. Each week, an inside look into sports, wellness, fitness, and introduce you to some special guests throughout the community to hopefully entertain and inspire you. Inspire being the key word in this show today, because we have three extremely special people. We're going to move from our regular sports to a program attracting a different demographic group, and that's adapted sports league coaches and educators. And with us today, Nick Slusser, Matt Meyers, and Tyler Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm fond of this program, and I was involved in this at the club, and I mean, this is an underappreciated program in this community, and it's underappreciated in the people that work in the program, and that's why I wanted you on today. But before we talk about that, let's get to know you up close and personal, starting with you, Nick.
All right, Nick Slusser. I am 18 to 21-year-old special education transition teacher at Holman High School. We're based out of the YMCA in Alaska, and my teaching job is to take students that have done their 4 years at the high school into their 5th, 6th, and possibly 7th year to give them the independent living skills necessary. So once they leave our high schools, they don't go home and live with their parents. They actually get out to get jobs. They know how to create their own bank account, how to budget, cook, clean, socialize. And that kind of led into the Adapted Sports League for our Holman athletes.
You know, that is, I don't think many people even realize that position exists. And the collaboration with the Y and what they've done with the Miracle Field and all the things, I mean, that's pretty special. Oh. And what the Boys and Girls Club does with that special population. Let's go quickly down memory lane, though, to you. When you were younger, did you always feel you wanted to get into this kind of work?
Oh, absolutely. I always wanted to become a teacher. I just didn't know in what capacity, if I wanted to do, teaching and coaching or just teach, younger students. But this kind of naturally fell on me with the age of students that I work with and the need for something else, something more for them. They see their peers at the high school participating in all these sports and practicing after school, and they all just went home. So based on my experience of playing football, basketball, baseball, and track in high school, I'm like, you know what? We can make this work, thanks to Jim Capuccio, of course. He's the one that kind of got the ball rolling here in the La Crosse area.
Boy, I guess so, and I'm familiar with that name too. I don't know how many of our viewers are, but Matt Meyers, familiar with you because you are in the La Crosse School District as an instructor. But let's go back down memory lane with you first. You were an athlete in high school, and did you always want to get into this field?
I did. I always knew, like Nick said, I always wanted to teach in some capacity, and I wasn't sure what that was. So I was a UWL graduate in 2009 and hooked up with Dr. Garth Tymoson's programs there. And as a physical education teacher, and also took some adapted physical education classes, I learned that adapted physical education was everything I liked about PE to the next level. So that was a really nice opportunity for me, and this is my 6th year here in La Crosse, and being able to carry out some of those things that I learned from Dr. Tymoson have been really instrumental here in La Crosse.
We're going to transition it into Dr. Tymoson's program in a little bit, which was kind of the inspiration for you moving on. Before we do that, I'm familiar with Tyler Thomas from his days working at a place called the Boys and Girls Club that I was at for 41 years.
Yeah.
So how'd you get involved in this?
Well, I'll be honest with you, but when I went into school at UWL, I didn't even know adapted PE existed. And so it was something that we had an introductory course in it, and as you got into it, it was just kind of, oh, this is a really cool thing. This might be something I want to look into as I go further. So then I ended up picking up the adapted PE minor in UWL, and the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And by the time I got to where I was graduating, I was just to the point where I would like to try this at least some point in my career to be a full-time adapted PE teacher, and ended up I student taught at Alaska last year, and under Jim Capuccio was my adapted PE student my adapted PE teacher I worked with, and he ended up retiring this year, and so here we are.
Yeah, he's certainly an icon in that area. I remember Tyler, though, as a high school athlete at Brookwood. He doesn't know that, but I refereed some of your games when you played, and you were a good athlete. And did you always want to get into this kind of work?
I did. I mean, there was a one point where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and so I ended up taking a break from school and everything, and I worked construction for about a year, and then I realized that's not really something I really want to do for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with it, but just not my cup of tea. And so I decided to go back to school, and so as I explained before, I went through it, and here I am.
Well, you guys all talked about Garth Tymeson, and I know he's been on our show before, and I'm familiar with him. I don't think a lot of people in the community are familiar with the Center on Disability and Health and Adapted Physical Activity, which you all, it kind of led you into your career. But let's talk a little bit about the components quickly with that, which includes attracting and working with students and people of all ages. I think you have transitioned into your job as a result of that, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a need everywhere, and the reason that they even created my program, Project Live, was because there's nothing else like it around this area. They've tried to do 18 to 21 programs, and they just unfortunately did not work too well. But then once this got going and was successful, we kind of took our gaze and looked at the greater view, and you know what? There's an opportunity for these young adults with special needs to participate in sports, just like their peers. And all of a sudden the schools started talking to each other, and one thing led to another.
Well, I know part of the center too is aquatics and mentoring and so on. And talk about your experiences, Matt, in that particular program.
Yeah, as an undergraduate at UWL, I was able to participate in a lot of those programs as an instructor. So learning about different students and different ways to teach those students was kind of the stepping stone, not only for my job as an adapted PE teacher, but also transitioning to take those skills that we work on in those community-based programs to the next step in a school.
And I know another component of the center, in talking to Garth, and is applied research and evaluation, along with some evidence base for physical activity, and targeting those special population that are somewhat sedentary and have nutrition, obese issues and so on because they are sedentary.
Yeah, so I mean that's something that we do try to focus on, because with those disabilities comes the more sedentary lifestyle, and so we try to find different ways to make them active. I know something I do with my program at the high school is we go to the Y and we learn how to use the equipment and how to wipe down the equipment, how to use the facilities. That way, when they are past the point where they're aged out, as you can say, they could go to the Y themselves or with a program and then be able to use those facilities.
You know, you are playing such a vital role in developing and in executing programs for the underserved. The underserved is the key part of that statement. What an incredibly awesome, vital position you play. In a quiet moment, Nick, do you ever sit back and think, this is a gift?
Oh, absolutely. It can be a loud moment in the middle of our championship game against Onalaska or Central, when everyone's screaming their heads off and the students are flying around with sweat going all over the place. Quiet, loud moments all the time, because we never imagined it would be what it has become. After the first year, we'd have a couple family members in the stands. Now we're getting other athletic groups showing up at these games. We're getting their peers. We're getting their friends to show up. We're getting larger crowds, and it's just so exciting. And we're so blessed to be able to have it.
Blessed, emotional though. Well, give me an example of a reaction or a defining moment on your team, or what you've witnessed, Matt.
You know, in general, in our positions where we work with students who might be age 3, might be age 21, those long-term connections that you have with families. In particular, I think of our goalie this year, and he and his family attend a lot of hockey games together. They learn about the position. They've been able to have that moment together where they've taken on a sport and had many experiences outside of that sport just because of his specific role with our team.
And I'm sure, Tyler, too, you've worked with lots of different young people now, and there's probably some difficult moments for you, some filled with joy and some filled with sadness.
Yeah, I mean, there's some moments where maybe a student has a behavioral disability or something like that, and they all of a sudden something happens in the game where they're still learning how to handle those, how to hone in those behaviors and handle that, and it's just kind of comes to be a difficult part where you're trying to coach at the same time, but then, okay, how are we going to work this through and still be a teacher for them? And so that can be a difficult thing at times, but then it's also when you see them work through it, it's also a time of triumph for them, because it's just those one little victories at a time. And that's what we're working for, is those little victories, one at a time.
Well, good. We're going to step aside just for a minute, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about adapted PE, the MDC program, and some best practices. We'll be right back.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. Today, we're talking about the special population adapted PE in the area. Our guests, Nick Slusser, Matt Meyers, and next to me, Tyler Thomas. Well, we talked a little bit about best practices before we went to break, and there are lots of them out there, and I happened to look at some of them this morning, particularly the Minnesota Adapted PE program. A lot of people take a model from Minnesota, and we're right there with them. One of the best in the nation, right out of the center at UWL, run by Garth Tymeson. But you address needs of people with all kinds of disabilities, don't you, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's called the adaptive, sports league, because we have to adapt our coaching strategies and we adapt the rules. So we took Minnesota as not necessarily as a Bible and read every word for word, rule. We took it and used it as our model, and then our best practice as coaches that's worked well for us is our ability to communicate with each other. Just this year, this is our 4th season of the ASL. We just decided to add another position into our soccer and our hockey leagues. And not only has it given more athletes playing time, it's even the playing ground. And it was something that just evolved over communication and practice. And it's always changing, and our athletes are always changing too. Every year we might have a student with an athlete with a different disability. That's going to change your approach to the game and how you're going to compete with other teams as well.
And I know this has been addressed by both the Department of Education, state, local, and federal legislative directions, or directives, I should say. Being sure that the programs offered are inclusive and that all young people have an opportunity to participate. And that really is the catalyst for a lot of that. Wouldn't you say, Matt?
It is, Terry. The Department of Education released that guidance, and that's helped us kind of understand where these athletes need to be participating at. So we were able to take those guidance and those general things that the Department of Education provided and bring that to our district and talk with our district adapted PE teachers and administrators about what that means for us and what that looks like for us as a district. And having Onalaska and Holmen as partners in that was really beneficial for us.
Was it hard to sell the school districts in terms of the lack of funds, perhaps, and use of gymnasiums and personnel and so on, that this is an important program that needs to be implemented in the schools? Was that hard in Onalaska?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't part of the initial bringing into it, and Jim Capuccio was the one that had everything set up there. But out of discussions I've had with him, that it was a challenge. But I mean, once you bring forth the benefits and show the board and all the members that you need to show them to the benefits of the program, it just, from what I've heard from him anyway, it was a slam dunk. But I think these guys might have some more input about how.
Is there sustainability issues? Is there funding issues? Is there an evaluation, an assessment that determines the future? Is there, Matt?
We do not have sustainability issues in La Crosse School District. I think that we're an established program. We're taken very seriously there because of the things that have been accomplished through the Adapted Sports League.
And the Holmen is a progressive community. Mm-hmm. You're connected with the Y, and I admire the people in Holmen. And it's just they're a model. for a lot of different things, and you feel that way about your program.
Oh, absolutely. Sustainability-wise, we try not to ask for too much because of how my other program was kind of created. We rely a lot on fundraising, and we rely on the community. So we're out in the community with our jerseys on, letting people know, hey, we're here to stay. Come out and check us out. Come on out to our fundraisers, so we can purchase a lot of our stuff and not put that burden on the school, which is important when we started out, because that was going to be a major obstacle for us, was the funding. So we decided to take care of that as a program ourselves.
I know, I'm not sure if a lot of our viewers know, but it is now a Mississippi Valley Conference program, and of course we have Holman and La Crosse and Onalaska represented on the show today. And let's talk a little bit about that. You have 3 sports. Nick, you want to take one of them?
Yeah, well, to start off our season, we have indoor soccer, which starts pretty much right away when the school year starts, a couple weeks in. And it's same soccer rules apply, but it's all indoors to make sure that we accommodate any athletes that are in wheelchairs. But I mean, it's pretty straightforward soccer rules.
And then, of course, in the winter, when it's cold in the Midwest, everybody goes inside. What do you do with the special population?
In January, February, we transitioned to probably my personal favorite, which is ASL floor hockey. So,
you any good at that?
I would not.
That's why it's his favorite. They just won the championship.
Hey, well, congratulations! Now the whole world is going to know who won that championship. Once this gets on YouTube.
La Crosse Central, yeah.
You'll be famous.
Yeah.
You probably already are.
Yeah, a little bit. But you're not before this.
Well, but you're famous with the participants that you serve. All of you are. I know that for a fact.
We're able to, being a coach, being a teacher, we're able to create really long-standing relationships, not only with the athletes but with their families. And whether or not you consider that famous or not, that's certainly a special relationship we get to have.
Well, exactly. And your favorite, Tyler, I know, I saved yours for last, and that's the indoor version of softball wiffle ball. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a pretty new one for me, because my first year being the Adaptive Sports League coach for ASL this year. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. You better figure it out. You're hosting the tournament.
Yeah, right. I know. There's a lot riding on it, but no, it's pretty straightforward as far as the softball rules as well.
How about practice times for all these sports and game times and so on?
Tyler's the one that's a little different. I know his program runs Monday through Thursday, but generally here in La Crosse, and I believe in Holman, we practice and play games on Tuesdays and Thursdays for about 90 minutes, and games sometimes go a little bit longer than that.
Officials. And now I'm sure the rules are a little different. Speaking as an official, I've done some Special Olympics games, not done your particular league, but distinction in rules, lots of different rules?
I'd say no. Well, when we first started out, the officials were us. The coaches had to be out there for the first at least 2 years. And then Dr. Tymeson stepped in and was like, you know what, I have all of these undergrad and graduate students that would benefit from coming out to help assist and coach. They can learn from you guys, and then we can also throw them in there to help run the clock, referee games, and it's slowly evolved into we're relying on them, because it kind of takes us out as being coaches when we're also out there officiating. It kind of takes us away from being able to talk to our athletes one-on-one on the bench, so on and so forth.
Can your athletes letter? Can they get a high school letter?
Our athletes at La Crosse Central do letter if they participate in all 3 sports, or 3 total seasons over the course of their time.
And they have to abide by the same rules that other athletes, behavioral, academics, and so on, I presume.
Yeah, much like the code of conduct policy that exists in most high schools or for most athletes, we do abide by that. We certainly take into account when adaptations need to be made based on maybe an incident Tyler was talking about where a student may have some behavioral issues. But that's our guiding force, that code of conduct policy, and that's something we work off of.
Well, behavioral issues across the spectrum.
No doubt.
As we all know. How about goals into the future? Let's just kind of step into the future. And what would you like to see, starting with you, Nick? What would you like to see down the line? Getting more kids involved, marketing, what would you like to see?
We've been trying, but I think us as the establishing coaches can do a better job, and we'll probably talk about it after this, getting out and talking to the other schools. We need, just like the league was created to give these athletes the opportunity that their peers have, we'd like to play the other schools like their peers are able to play. And I just got the phone with Ryan Gannon. We're talking about getting Sparta and Toma. We've been trying to get West Salem and the Crescent involved. We'd like to have a varsity and a junior varsity team, if at all possible, if the numbers are there. Everything that their peers have and enjoy doing and grow and learn from, we would like that for the exact same reasons for our athletes.
I'm confident that that can happen in the future. Is funding an issue with that, Matt?
I think it could be. I don't know that districts know the extent of what we do here. We're fortunate in the La Crosse area with La Crosse and Onalaska and Holman to have strong programs. And Nick said it, we need to do a better job of getting the word out, because while our kids and our athletes and our families are getting this benefit, we know that there are other students and athletes and kids and families in other communities that aren't getting this yet. So that's on us.
How about clinics, exposing parents to it, maybe other athletes or another group of people with disabilities that maybe you are not addressing, whether it's autism or all kinds of things. Could you even could the program attract even more young people?
I think absolutely it could. I think as far as clinics and things like that, I mean, I'm sure Matt's doing this all the time too, as far as if we get wind of some program. Maybe, I know there's like a top soccer program that's coming. I don't know if you've heard about that, but handing out to parents, hey, this is going on, and so maybe then make sure that we're a part of those things as well, that get the word out that, hey, if you like playing soccer, hey, we got Adaptive Sports League going on, soccer in the fall, or whatever the case might be.
Viewers watching the show, and they're like, I would like to be part of this. I would like to be a volunteer or a coach. What do you look for, Nick, in somebody that's in your program, under your leadership?
You got to be dedicated and have a heart. You got to be willing to accept these athletes for who they are, the good, the bad, the ugly. There's a lot that comes with us. It's not, you're talking about working with a student with autism. And we do have students that have autism. If you have an IEP and you cannot successfully participate in a regular varsity sport, you qualify for the Adaptive Sports League. And trying to communicate as a coach, you're like, give it an 11. Well, they see that, what do you mean as an 11? As literal thinkers, that comes with a challenge like that. So these people that would love to help out, great, come on. The more exposure we have, the better we are, and the better we will be at growing these programs.
What would you say would be the biggest value, Matt, as we end the show in the last 2 minutes? If you look at it, just sort of capsulize what you see the biggest value or the benefits are to the athlete and to the family.
It being a part of a school-sponsored Adapted Sports League program. There's a fellowship, there's a sense of belonging that our athletes at Central, they are a part of Central. They hear their scores announced on the intercom after the games. They participate in the letter winners banquet. That is, you can't put a price on that kind of thing in terms of how you feel about what your school can do for you and what you can do for your school.
Well, you got to throw in there too the parents, never imagining they would see their student with a disability in a varsity jersey playing on the high school gymnasium floor, getting their name announced. That's something that they never fathomed when they found out that they had a child with a disability. And to see the parents' faces like something like that is just incredible.
Powerful. And equipment? I know there's always a need for equipment, and you need to have safe equipment, quality equipment, just like the other teams have. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just got done this last week. Our budgets were due for sports for the next year, so it's the whole going through, okay, this helmet's got this piece missing for the hockey helmets, and so just really got to stay on top of, just like any other sport, stay on top of the equipment and make sure everything's going the way it's supposed. But then there's also some adapted equipment. We have a student with a visual impairment, and so then there's things specially designed just for him that he uses, and and so we got to make sure that those beeper balls and things like that are working for them. So Yeah.
So this has been interesting. Now, you talked about marketing, and perhaps this, along with what's been covered on local TV, can be a catalyst for even promoting the program more, because it's near and dear to my heart, with a special needs sister being involved in some of the programs in the past. Again, I want to say you three play a vital role in shaping the lives of the underserved. And you are appreciated a lot, and I think our viewers would agree. And this is going to be YouTube around the world, and you're going to get the credit you deserve. Our guests today, Nick Slusser, Matt Meyers, and Tyler Thomas, coaches, administrators in Adapted Sports League in the area. Thanks for being on the show. We'll be back with some closing thoughts right after this.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
Who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning. Your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. I hope you enjoyed our interviews. We talked today about Adapted Sports. What a great model, a tremendous program for the rest of the country to emulate. Well, we just finished our schedule for spring baseball throughout the Coulee Region, and we'll be covering games deep into the postseason in early June. Well, we appreciate that you take the time each and every week to watch Seven Rivers Sports. If you have a thought on a topic or a guest, please contact us here at KQEG. I'm your host, Terry Erickson, hoping that you have an active and a healthy week ahead. So long from all of us here at Seven Rivers Sports.